Welcome to the Graceful Exit podcast. I'm Kimberly Hertz, founder of the Graceful Exit, created to educate, empower, and support women as they navigate divorce. Beginning with us, we are putting a stop to the divorce stigma through meaningful conversations about the emotional and endearing experience divorce often brings. My hope is that you'll follow along on this journey and join our community of women navigating divorce with grace. Hi, everybody. Today I have an absolute pleasure meeting with two of our trusted professionals, both Catharine and Karen, who have come on and joined us as a collaborative partner in the divorce space. And both of them have navigated divorce personally and have created this incredible business called My Divorce Solution that we'll talk about a little bit later. But Catharine, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Okay. Hi, I'm Catharine Shanahan Baldwin now. I got remarried. Thank you. I, too, have gone through the divorce process, so I know exactly what you're feeling if you're there right now. I got divorced 10 years ago. I can't believe it's been 10 years. I raised a blended family, 3 stepchildren and 2 biological children. And after going through my own experience of divorce, I just decided that it was time to make change and help people divorce in a better way. I met Karen, and I'll let you tell a little bit about herself before we came together.
Okay. Hi, I'm Karen Chalou, and I also experienced the divorce process. I was a very young person. I was only 29 years old when I went through my divorce. My kids were very young, 7 and 5. And at the time, I was working for a law firm. So in that respect, I had the best attorneys in the county available to me to help me with my divorce. But irrespective of that, I realized that I did not have the financial acumen to navigate the divorce process. And while I was very good with my budget, while I managed the household finances, I still wasn't equipped for the divorce process. So when I met Catharine and we talked about the gap between legal representation and financial clarity, it became clear to me that this was my life's path.
Oh, wow. That's so interesting of how you guys connected and found your purpose in all of this. And I'm sorry you've had to go through it, but I know there's so many of us out there that have been in your shoes. And it's just such a guiding light that you guys are both providing to us that are navigating it through, that you can get past it and create something beautiful out of it. So if you want to talk a little bit about what My Divorce Solution is and what you guys can offer, I would greatly appreciate that.
So My Divorce Solution is we try to bridge the gap, like I said, between the legal requirements and the financial analysis. We help couples and or individuals have financial clarity while they're going through the divorce process, not from an advice perspective, but from this is what it is, and this is what you have, and this is how it plays forward for you. These are your options. This is what you're looking at. And it really takes on the role of really dissipating the emotional attachment that people may have to their financial well-being and helps them see it in a light of more of a business transaction, because that's a really important place to get when you're navigating the divorce process.
Yeah. So help me understand. A client walks into you guys. Are they in the middle of a divorce? Have they started, or can it be anywhere in between? And then kind of walk me through the steps of what the actual process looks like.
So when a client comes to us, best case scenario is before they have signed any legal. The reason for that is or means to them. And when they go to legal counsel or a mediator, often the initial response is, well, what do you want? Most people aren't equipped to answer that question without financial clarity. Mm-hmm. So best case scenario, a person has not filed for divorce. A lot of people don't realize also that the divorce petition and or complaint is very offensive to the spouse. So if there's any hope of mediating or working things out or working together, even to get your financial portrait together, even if there's adversity in the relationship, that petition or complaint can ruin any chances, because the language in it, while it is templated and it's a regulated language, it is very offensive just because it's very harsh. That being said, many people, couples, come to us after they've tried litigation or after they've tried mediation because they realize they don't have the financial clarity they need to know what it means on the other side of divorce. So when a client comes to us, we take them through an initial launch process. They fill out intake forms. They work with me or one of our legal liaisons creating a budget. We do all the financial disclosures for every state that requires them nationally. They fill in their information in our financial software. We help them upload documents. And all through that, we're helping them understand how it works. We're having conversations with them so that they can communicate in a different way and a better way with each other. And they're learning every step that they go through with us. They're learning more and more about the divorce process and how assets and debts are divided.
Yeah, I go off the processes a little bit and just put it into a format of, you're going through the process, and so a lot of times you're thinking about it. You're not really you're not really sure if you want a divorce. You don't really know what the impact will be afterwards. Then you might be in the process of when you're sitting with your attorney or your mediator, and they're suggesting you get a forensic accountant or that you get a CPA or you get somebody else on your team, but you're not really sure how it's impacting you. Or you're maybe towards the end of the process and you're asked to make all these decisions about your finances, but you're not really sure. Because the one thing that I found through all this time is that people don't trust each other when they're going through a divorce process. And the next thing after the not trusting is everybody is chirping in your ear saying your spouse is hiding something. So you go through this process not thinking that you have access to all the information that you need to make really smart decisions. And you walk into a process thinking that everybody else has the power to make the decisions for you. So with our financial portrait, which is what our process is we are determined to shift the power into your hands so that you can make smart decisions. And it doesn't mean that we're telling you where your investments should be, or that you should understand what RSUs and options are, or that you need to know what investment account to take. That's not what it means. It means that you need to be aware of what they are and that your estate has them in your estate, I should say. So, and then you have to understand what are the components to all of those assets. You don't have to be able to call the financial advisor and make us a decision based on what the market's doing today. You just have to know that there are components to each of these accounts that you have that you need to be aware of. How do you interpret all those components to make a really smart decision? You need access to this information to do that, and you need the assessment that we give you to be able to interpret these components. Because then you'll be aware of what your options are when you compromise, because everybody has to compromise in divorce. And so what Karen and I have found out is that as we go through our processes, we kind of have our eyes open to, okay, you might need a forensic accountant on your team right now, but we have the uniformity of all of the information. You don't have to go give it to them again. We send it over to the forensic accountant based on the strategy of your mediator or your attorney, and why the forensic accountant is needed. We're able to pinpoint that and then send the documents for that. It's the same thing with a financial planner. We then can contact the financial planner to get all the components of everything in that statement so that you're aware of it, so that you can interpret it with your team of advisors. But what we focus on is the uniformity of all of that information and providing you with the knowledge that you need so you feel powerful enough to make your own decision.
So in turn, you guys act as pretty much the liaison on our behalf, if I'm understanding that correctly, correct? And a client comes in, you guys walk them through the paperwork, and then at the end of the term, if you will, you would then work with the attorney, the financial advisor, the forensic accountant. You're kind of the middleman steering in the ship, I guess, if you will, right?
Yeah. We create a reference point for all of the professionals who will be involved in that matter. So if a couple or a person has already hired an attorney or they've already hired professionals, the very first step that we take is to connect with those professionals already on board to help them understand our role and how can we help them, help the client help them, so that their team remains intact at all times. We feel like that's a very important piece of this, so that no one's feeling out of the loop or disconnected from helping the client get to their eventual result.
Yeah, and I can speak firsthand. So I'm a CPA by background and trade, and I can't tell you how overwhelming, even though I had the financial acumen of knowing what my debt liabilities, assets were, it was the most overwhelming process I have been through. And I worked directly with the attorney. Had I had this liaison, if you will, I think it would have been so much simpler in my head. I want to say mine took about 6 months to fill out all the paperwork and gather all the documents and being able to get back to the attorney back and forth. Can you help me understand how long does this process take, and have you seen it go quickly, longer? What is a typical scenario?
Can I hop in here 1 minute before you answer that, Karen, because she's really good at answering that. You and Karen both brought up really important facts for your listeners to hear. Karen brought up the fact that when she went through her divorce, she was working for a really good law firm, but still didn't feel like she had the information she needed to make smart decisions. You bring up a really great point, saying you're a CPA by trade, but you still felt financially scared. Let's just call it. Absolutely. The two of you are very smart women. I happen to know you personally, and I know you professionally. So I know you're both really smart. And what's important to know is that if you're sitting out there listening and you feel scared and you feel like you just didn't do right over all these years because you can't answer financial questions, you are not dumb. Right. You just were not in a position to make those decisions either during your marriage or even now today. So just, take a minute and acknowledge that you're okay. And that's why Karen and I do what we do, is so that you can get that knowledge that just can't come to the forefront of your mind right now.
Yeah, and that's the other part of this, is your mindset when you're navigating divorce. You're emotionally all over the place. And again, had I had a liaison to walk me through the financial piece of it, I think would have been such a weight off my shoulders. So I can so heartily appreciate what you guys bring to the table. So Karen, if you want to address, the time length and how that typically works.
Sure, absolutely. And when you talk about, the emotional piece of it, so it is, you are emotionally overwhelmed.
Yeah.
Divorce is second to the death of a spouse in the terms of trauma. So that piece is going on, but a lot of people also equate emotional justice to the divorce process. And that they don't understand until typically they get their divorce decree that any one person's behavior doesn't necessarily play into the division of assets or how their marital estate is divided. Mm-hmm. And so working with us, we help them understand that and break that down. So first and foremost, our process allows for anybody's pace. So we don't rush people through, but if you're in a hurry, or not in a hurry, but if you need answers very quickly, you can probably get this finished up in as short as 3 months. That's probably the shortest time that someone has completed it. But sometimes people need a longer learning curve and they want to take their time and they're unsure. And just going through our process doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to get a divorce. You're going to get financial clarity. And some people use our process to determine if divorce is the answer or the intended solution in the first place. So to answer your question, it can be done in a short amount of time as 3 months or as long as someone needs to take. And while our processes are built to educate, sometimes it's more work than anyone is able to do, any one person. So if that becomes overwhelming, our team hops in and assists that process too. Some people like to be very much engaged and integrated in getting the portrait delivered. And some people just say, you know what, I need you to carry as much of this as possible. And we have that option as well available to anyone, especially if you're not computer literate or you don't feel comfortable on the computer. It doesn't diminish your ability to work with us to develop your portrait.
Got it. And then, Karen, I know we talked a little about your professional background and how you came to this. Catherine, we forgot to mention about your professional background and how you got involved in this. So if you want to kind of give your credentials as well, so they know that this is a really solid company, and you guys definitely know how to navigate all this, I'd appreciate it.
Okay, sure. I have an accounting degree. I was a financial advisor since 1988. I got divorced 23 years after raising 5 children. I was 44. I decided that I didn't want to do the financial planning piece anymore after my divorce. So I gave up my FINRA licenses. I became a certified divorce financial analyst and just thought that if I was scared going through this process, listen, I handled the finances. Our divorce was not about the finances. It was about an emotional disconnect. But I thought if I'm scared, there has to be hundreds of women out there that are scared. So at that point, I decided in 2011 that I would help women just make smart decisions through the divorce process. And I really wouldn't focus on helping them invest their money. At that time, at 44, I never thought I'd be an entrepreneur. And people were telling me that I was an idiot for giving up my book of business because, I would make more off of that than I would charging people. But quickly, I knew that I was doing the right thing. I was following my passion. And I knew that there was a disconnect in the financial literacy piece of it. And then I very quickly learned that the court process and the legal process, there was a disconnect as well, which is when I sought after Karen. I knew that she was passionate about helping women in many areas of their life, and I knew that she was a firm administrator at a law firm. So I approached her and said, "Listen, we need to collide these two worlds," I always say, and help people do it a better way. And she was all on board, and that's when we formed our relationship.
Got it. And then just real quick to educate our community, the CDFA, so Certified Divorce Financial Analyst, not a lot of people know about what that does, what they do. So can you briefly explain what that credential actually means? Because I know going through divorce, I finally figured out that these people exist. And again, I wish I had one while navigating mine.
Yeah. A CDFA is a financial professional, and you do see some not accountants. You do see accountants, but you do see some attorneys have that designation. But a CDFA is somebody who is licensed in the divorce experience, getting the divorce acumen to their financial planning practice. So a financial planner might know everything about your investment and your risk tolerance and so forth, but a CDFA will understand the divorce process and how all of those decisions affect you in the divorce world. So it's just a different specialty other than just being a straight financial planner.
Got it.
So I'm just going to add there, I explain it because I'm not a CDFA. I explain it to us lay people. Yeah, that a CDFA is trained in how the courts divide assets. So they understand that piece of it. But what was interesting to me when I met Catharine is that this designation they weren't necessarily trained in the legal process. So while they know how the assets and debt is divided and they know all of the financial pieces to it, they're not necessarily trained in the inefficient and dysfunctional court process.
Right.
So that's the confusing part of it that people have to face when they're in that system. So while they may have a good financial spreadsheet, while they may have a net worth statement, it's really not that helpful when they're trying to navigate divorce because there's so many regulations and laws and processes that are old and ancient in our court system that really prevents an efficient way to get divorced. So when people come to us and get their portrait, and they walk away not only with all of their financial analysis, but also what we call a table of recommendations and considerations, which these are the questions that are really important to your specific marital estate. These are the people that you need to ask. So, for instance, I always use the 401k plan. If you're dividing a 401k plan, there's probably 9 to 15 questions that you need to ask your professionals so that you get a really good, solid agreement for yourself. And if you don't know the questions, then it's probably a high likelihood that it's going to be missing from your eventual marital settlement agreement. You're just going to see we're dividing it 50-50. And then you're going to find yourself back in court because there's so many nuances to that specific division that can create the offset of a lot of cash and money that would have otherwise been available, or a miscommunication so that the eventual plan administrator, that's the department that actually divides the money at the retirement plan, they don't have enough instruction to divide the account in the first place. We see it all the time. Right. So we like to interface in there and give you the specific questions and the recommendations and the knowledge to know what to ask and what components need to be addressed so that you get a really good, solid agreement.
Got it. And so a couple follow-up questions is, do you and your ex have to come together into your financial portrait, or can a woman navigate this by herself?
She's never going to be by herself. So we do have that points with us. And we will connect her to whatever professional she needs, sending her back through your site of trusted advisors, which is awesome. But no, they do not need to come with their spouse. Okay. Depending on where they are in the process, we have a process that we would introduce ourselves to their spouse when they're comfortable, if they're comfortable. So again, they wouldn't be doing that alone, but we would help them through that part of the process if their spouse is engaged.
Got it. And then how about, can you guys service anybody anywhere, or does it have to be a specific state?
Anywhere within the United States.
If I'm hearing it correctly, it could be a woman navigating this by herself anywhere in the U.S. They can come either pre, during, or even post-divorce, I guess, to help navigate your financial acumen or your needs or education.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Guys, I wish I desperately had this while navigating my divorce. And I just see the value that you guys both bring, both your legal, your professional background, as well as the CDFA, financial. And I can't thank you enough for being a part of this community, taking the time to educate. I think that's the most powerful thing. And then you guys have the empathy. You've been there. You've done it. You've navigated it. And now you're on the other side, both with blended families, and just give a sense of hope. So is there anything in closing that either one of you wanted to add into our community?
I would just want to add that you should take pause in any decision you're making, and that remember, if you're asking questions, it doesn't mean you're questioning somebody. It is your right to ask the appropriate questions you need to make really smart decisions that will affect the rest of your life. So when you ask a question, remember, you're not questioning somebody. It's a very different thing. You're simply asking a question, and you should ask many questions now before it's too late.
And I just want to mention that we have a podcast, a YouTube channel, a blog, an online course, all of which are available to people who are thinking about or going through the divorce process. The podcast and the YouTube channel is called We Chat Divorce. It's also on Facebook and social media. And our online course is available on our website. Those are really wonderful resources available to anyone who's approaching or going through the divorce process.
I could not agree more. And can you reference what the website is called? And we'll make sure to put it in the show notes as well.
It's www.mydivorcesolutions.com. And if anyone's interested in working with us, we have a quiz or a worksheet to go through on the website that kind of takes you through some general questions. And you'll be able to connect with us for, a free interview call if anyone's interested.
Perfect. Well, Karen and Catherine, thank you so much for taking the time again just to educate and be here with our community. I can't thank you both enough.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.